Well, look at that, No Man's Sky finally has a release date, sort of. It's more of a release window, to be honest, June 2016. And given how highly anticipated this game is, a trailer in the middle of Sony's Paris Games Week conference was a fairly low-key way of saying it's coming out. Really though, that tallies pretty closely with the way Sean Murray talked about No Man's Sky and managing the hype when our editor Oli spoke to him all the way back at E3. So without any further ado, here is that interview, after which Oli will briefly share his thoughts with Aoife about the game itself and the way Hello Games is dealing with the massive amount of attention No Man's Sky is getting. Enjoy!
I would prefer to come out of this, and this is a discussion I had with Sony, with like hype. Not there, but replaced instead by excitement, you know?
Right.
So like, I could have ended the demo with some, pre-scripted crazy thing that would happen, you know what I mean? The normal thing of like, and then a monster emerges from behind the mountains, like every other demo ended with that.
Yeah.
But that would be really misleading,
Because that's not your game.
Yeah, we're just trying to represent it. We think that is exciting. The game is exciting.
Yeah.
Hype for me is that other thing, which is like an unattainable level of excitement, if you see what I mean, like an excitement that will ultimately end in hurt.
Do you feel that's what existed around No Man's Sky sort of last year?
I don't know whether it sounds a bit arrogant for me to say that, like that. Oh, we had so much hype, but I guess, definitely it veered into that at times. I've worked on big games before. I've worked on Burnout, Need for Speed, and things like that that millions of people buy, but I haven't experienced the same levels of excitement with those games as what I have with this. In terms of showing it, initially we want to show how different it is to other games, but now we need to help ground people so they understand what type of game it is.
It must be quite difficult to protect yourself from that pressure, though, when a game gets the level of attention that No Man's Sky has, and you're just trying to keep it to your core idea and to what you want it to do.
I'd be lying if I said that there isn't lots of pressure, but I manage that by, for instance, I dropped off Twitter. I stopped answering emails and things like that. Like genuinely, I just kind of went quiet and I don't read the internet, and I go and try and make the game. And actually, it's not that hard to do that. To just go, shutters down, and make the game. Let's pretend nothing else is happening.
The sheer scale of the game, I think, was got across very effectively by your stage demo, and it is just incomprehensibly vast. How do you, when you're working with procedural generation and making something that big, how do you make sure that the nucleus is there that players are going to really enjoy?
We do testing, which has started even now, kind of internally, and we also have kind of automated testing where we send out little AI bots and they record images and stuff like that, but they also try and simple things so you wouldn't think of, like they try and traverse the terrain and find if they get stuck in certain places and problems that can happen, frame rate, memory usage, stuff like that, right? We have a lot of that, but then there's, I think, which is your question, is how engaging is this thing? And I guess we have a design, we have a number of ways of playing the game that we feel work. Right, and they work. This big a sandbox, they work regardless of the world, right? That's the thing that I struggle to explain to people, is that the world is just an aesthetic in many ways. Like the planet that you land on, that is an aesthetic. But actually, what you care about as a gamer when you're playing the game is what resources are there, what trading posts, what things can I discover, what technologies can I find, and then I'm off to the next planet, kind of thing. And they're kind of your gamer goggles go on, and you stop caring. And actually, it's not that different to a lot of kind of open world games that you play, where it's like Skyrim or something like that. You're on your way to do a thing, to level up your character, and in our case, to upgrade your ship, your weapon, your suit, or whatever, so that you can go further, travel faster, protect yourself better, win more fights and stuff like that. And you actually stop caring about the thing that we've focused on so much is the wonder of the planets and things like that.
I get that this is a community game, and the point is discovering stuff that other people haven't discovered, or seeing that something has been discovered before. But to what extent is it a multiplayer game? I mean, you mentioned trading.
You trade with the kind of galactic economy and stuff like that. We really are very careful to downplay any multiplayer aspects, and in some ways I feel like just saying there is no, forget about multiplayer, right? This is not an MMO, it's not a game you sit down and play with your friends. There are loads of games that do that, and they're way better at it than us. If you want a death match, No Man's Sky is not for you, we want you to feel that other people are playing the game at the same time, and probably the biggest way you'll see that is just the fact that this universe is being explored, and when you go to certain places they might have already been named. There are other interactions that you have that people will have left behind for you that we haven't talked about, but you'll get the feeling that this isn't a completely empty universe. There are other explorers in there with you, and yes, it will be possible to come across somebody, and we want those moments, but that's not what the game's about. I would describe it like Journey. Journey is not. Imagine if that game company had said Journey is this great multiplayer game, because Journey for me was an amazing multiplayer game, amazing multiplayer experience, right? But you do not sit down with your friends and kind of say, let's all play some Journey tonight,
One last question. What is it about space at the moment, and why now? Because I was talking to Dean Hall yesterday about his new game, which sounds absolutely fascinating. There seems a lot of this at the moment where people just suddenly, imaginations are being seized by the idea of space exploration.
I saw this thing ages ago, but there was a nostalgia graph, basically. The theory is, the nostalgia graph theory, right, is depending on the size of the impact of a cultural event, right, there is a wave that's created. And the larger the impact of that, the longer you have to wait before it has a resurgence, basically, right? And if you wait long enough and you hit it exactly right, then the resurgence will be huge. If you don't wait long enough, people will find it a bit kind of, too soon, a bit gross kind of thing. And they plotted various films and how well they had done, basically, and they were saying the X-Files film came too soon after the X-Files, and people just remembered it with a bit of a cringe, you know what I mean? So there's that kind of thing, and I think that's happened with space. There was, I don't know, it's probably the simplest explanation is, I was a kid when space games were actually huge, and now I'm grown up and I can make my own games. So I want to make a space game. Maybe it's as simple as that.
What was he like to chat to?
Yeah, he was good. He's a little bit guarded. It's a different man from the guy who I sat in a pub with and chatted about Joe Danger with, but before that game even came out, whatever that was, 4 or 5 years ago, not that long ago. He was a little bit guarded because I think he's aware of how much pressure they're under, but I think he's also enjoying the attention to an extent. He knows that they're onto something really hot.
Well, the thing was, I think a few people have mentioned that he looked kind of, not muted, but a little bit more low-key perhaps, or less hyped than we've seen him at previous presentations.
I think that was almost deliberate. I got the sense from him that the phase of hype is over, and it's time for them to actually concentrate on what the game really is, and that might involve bringing people's expectations down a little bit, and he's actually comfortable with that because he really likes what he's made, and I think he feels that it's got a little bit out of control in terms of what people think it's going to be.
Because the whole Sony thing was basically, it can do everything, you can go anywhere, it's like infinite basically, and I don't think
it is vast. I mean, it is an incomprehensibly big game, but the thing that really struck me from playing it for a minute was that it is an indie game, and I think that's what, because it has this wonderful art direction and because it's got some very clever technology in terms of procedural generation, I think that people have sort of refigured it in their minds as a sort of really clever AAA game, but it is an indie game. It looks and feels like an indie game once you get past this wonderful sort of art style. And that's fine. Yeah. It's going to be a really great and interesting indie game built on some really interesting technology.
Well, so the problem was, like, I think everyone was like expecting it to have combat and having all these other sorts of things that it was never intended to have to begin with, right?
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, we've got to pull it back and say, because, well, I think the thing that everyone's worried about is, will I get bored after going to about 5 or 6 planets or so and seeing around the same thing? And to be honest, that's always my problem with hearing the words procedural generation.
Yeah.
Because that is usually what happens.
This will be the big test for the game, to be honest. And like they seem pretty confident they've got a pretty good core gameplay loop, which is just, it's about the stuff that you would expect, basically. Scanning stuff, mining stuff, a little bit of combat in order to level up your ship, your jetpack, your gun, and so on, and just standard video game sort of advancement path. And they seem pretty confident in that. The question is whether that magical moment, and it is magical, because I know, because I tried it, when you pull in from a planet from orbit and you go through the atmosphere and you seamlessly go down to land and hop out of your craft, the fact that it does that, and it does it perfectly seamlessly, is incredible. It's whether the joy of that moment wears off, whether they have enough, they've balanced it well enough with their algorithm that the planets are different enough, and yet they still manage to retain that very distinctive art style, which is a big part of the game's appeal. So that's going to be quite tricky. Like, I mean, I played it for 5 minutes, and it's not actually the sort of game that you can experience in that way. I felt reassured that there's going to be stuff to do. It's the bridging the gap between the game's fairly sort of basic, simple video game guts and its grand ideas is going to be quite tricky.
We don't really need the vehicles because we're literally right next to it at the moment.
That's true.
Although I kind of now want to...
Call in something ridiculous like a
tractor.
bus. Oh yeah, tractor.
Tractor, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We both know what's going to happen there. Yep, see, that was silly.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, I wasn't expecting to still be sitting on it. Oh, no.